my own room. I have to hug around all these books and bags and copies, and I am sick and tired of people apologising to students for losing their work. It happens to me all the time. My boot of the car is my office. So I tried to change that up by creating a class blog. My students write beautiful poetry, they write prose, they have collaborated on creative projects and wall charts, and they've slaved over scrapbooks and comic books. And where do all of these end up? In presses, in the boot of my car, in the bin, because I can't hold them anymore. So what I do now is I just take photos of them and I put them up on our class blog, and that way, people from all over the world can view them. I see my blog as a virtual classroom. I don't have my own classroom, so this is my virtual classroom. I can post resources for my students, pictures of our school and class events, and examples of excellent homework. That's something that students really love. So if anyone ever does an excellent essay, I'll post it to the blog, and Mum and Dad and Granny can go on and have a look, and they really, really enjoy it. I'd encourage any teacher in the room or any educator in the room without their own classroom, especially second and third level. If you don't have your own class, I'd really encourage you to go on and do something like this. It has done absolute wonders for my own social networking. Now, not that I needed another social networking tool, but just for educators and for teachers to comment on our blogs, it's been so effective in my own teaching. So moving on to the European Commission. As I said, I'm in this position since about, I think it's February of last year. And yeah, it was the last conference. We had a big conference in February of last year. It was a big CESI conference. And I remember it was a really big deal. I was delighted. I had been recommended by Anne White of the NCCA. I was very proud. Anne Looney, who was head of the NCCA, she was very proud as well. And they gave me a big shout out at the conference, and I was still in bed. So I think there's a picture of a treat up there for you. So maybe it's on the next slide. So I am a young advisor to this woman here. This is Vice President Nellie Cruz, and she's an absolute inspiration in all things digital. She's 72 years of age, but you wouldn't think it to be around her, to listen to her, to look at her even. She's so stylish and fabulous. She has the energy of a teenager. It's a very, very exciting role that I have. I get to travel to Brussels, I get to travel to Strasbourg. This summer I get to go to Italy because there's a meeting on in Italy. I get to meet lovely, new and interesting people. Nellie she wanted to give a big shout out to everyone here today. She was delighted to hear about a conference, an education conference that takes place on a Saturday. And she was in Dublin on Tuesday at a meeting with Minister Cannon. And she couldn't believe that teachers are giving up a whole day just to learn and to educate ourselves more, and she was so inspired by it. She's very passionate about all things ICT. As I mentioned already, she's the Commissioner for the Digital Agenda. She's a great believer in empowering women in ICT. So she strives to find as many courses and as many things as she can for women in ICT. She's actually, when she chose me to be her young advisor, I was a little bit biased because she was looking for women. She wasn't looking, she didn't look men on the team, so already I had a foot in the door. So if I move on then to Code Week, this is the Love Fest now. Code Week took place last year. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it, but if it wasn't for a lot of you, it wouldn't have taken place at all. In August of last year, Nellie Cruz, together with her young advisors, tested the waters with an idea of a week of coding throughout Europe. Now, you've probably heard of the Hour of Code and things like that. It's been done before, but we just wanted one in Europe. There's been a lot of talk recently about the success of EU Code Week and what exactly drove Ireland to the top of the table. So out of every single European country, Ireland was top. We had over 300 events in Ireland alone in that week. They had 2 in France. So Nellie Cruz were in Dublin this week. No, I'm not sorry, France or anything. But Nellie Cruz, she was in Dublin this week and on a fact-finding mission with an express aim to find out what made Ireland so successful. We had over 300 registered events, as I've said, but judging from social media chatter, those figures don't demonstrate the true extent of our success. So in actual fact, I think we're closer to 500, but we can't really say that because we don't have official figures, but I think we did. I had meetings with workshops with other young advisors. So there's 25 of us on this panel. There's 25 young advisors. I'm the Irish one. So I had meetings with all the other young advisors from all over Europe. And I was asked to explain, just explain why Ireland was so successful. Can you do that? So educators and people from industry came to the workshop. It was this big, massive workshop. There was a guy from Angry Birds. There was all these very important people dying to know what made Ireland so successful. I had to fucking go up and do a big talk. They wanted to know how the schools and businesses were contacted. They wanted to know who did our PR. They wanted to know how much the mentors were paid. They wanted to know how much the teachers were paid. They wanted to know who wrote the coding classes that students participated in during the week. They wanted to know how we got the Taoiseach to launch it. They wanted to know how we got so much national media coverage. And I was trying to explain to them, well, I tweeted about it. You know, I asked them. I asked the teachers. I asked my network of friends in the industry to help me out, and they just could not believe that people would do that. That teachers would reply to a tweet, set up an event during their own time, take time out of their class. They just could not get over it. I don't think they believe that that's how it started, and it is the God's honest truth. I tweeted that I had just been made the Irish ambassador for EU Code Week, and immediately Bernard Kirk from Galway Education Centre and Minister Cannon jumped on it, and they got the ball rolling. Minister Cannon was overly generous with both his time, his expertise, and his contacts. I owe him a lot. The mentors and teachers of Coder Dojo. I suppose we're very lucky in Ireland that Coder Dojo was founded here. So we have a real love for Coder Dojo. It was founded by a 19-year-old. It just goes to show. I think we probably have the next founder here. I mean, look at the youth media team here today. Look how well they're doing. I definitely think there's going to be something coming from them down the line. The mentors and coders of Coder Dojo. Huge thanks to them. The guy from Angry Birds, as I said already, he emailed me there a couple of weeks ago. I can't think of his name. He emailed me and he asked me to write out a blueprint, or is there some kind of blueprint I can give to show how well Ireland did during Code Week? Is there some kind of blueprint we can give to other countries? If anyone comes up with something, I'm open to it. But I think it's just because we have such a great community here in Ireland. We have such a great community of teachers. We have such a great network of teachers. The next slide then. There we go. The whole way through Code Week, I was really nervous because in case somebody said to me, so what first got you into coding? And I didn't want that question because I don't code. And I thought, well, if they find out that I'm a big fat fraud, you know, maybe they won't take it so seriously. So I managed to get, I'd say I got about 5 days into Code Week. I was doing really well. We were in Brussels. We launched it from Brussels. And nobody had asked me the question. I thought I was very safe. Until I did a radio interview from Brussels with an Irish radio station. So thankfully there was no backlash. So I was given the line, just tell them you're from an education background, you're not from a coding background. So that's my official line. I'm not from a coding background. Now I do a little bit of coding now, obviously, but that's thanks to the kids who taught me, thanks to Coder Dojo. It is interesting to note that the other most successful country in the EU Code Week was Croatia. And Croatia was also a teacher who was ambassador. So I think the success behind the Code Week, I think it's the fact that it's teachers and education behind it that's driving that success. Getting young people interested in coding isn't just about technology and maths. It's about enhancing their problem-solving skills, which is something as an English teacher that I'd be really interested in. Trying to get them to create something, trying to get them to structure their answers, to work together. Ireland, as I said, Ireland did over 300 events happening during the first year of Code Week between the 25th and the 30th of November. And you'll notice that this year, I want everyone to take down that day, please, the 11th till the 17th of October. So that's Code Week for this year, is the 11th till the 17th of October. So our goal during Code Week is to improve the visibility of coding on a European scale, to motivate people to start coding, and to connect individuals, groups, organisations and companies who are willing to help more people experience the joy and relevance of coding. We need teachers and industry to make this week a success. We need participation in the form of events, through content for our website, through sponsorship and publicity. That'll all be appreciated. So, just moving slightly on from Code Week, I'm putting on my Bianca hat and I'm trying to give practical advice to any teachers out there who want to connect in a global classroom. And these are examples that I've used so far. Has anyone here, I don't know, have you heard of the Graduate Quiz? That website address up there, graduate.org, has anyone heard of it? Yeah? It's brilliant. It's absolutely amazing. It's this quiz that you fill in once a week. You have to be 16 to do it, but you fill in the quiz once a week. The answers are on the quiz, the links are on the quiz. And you might win a prize. You might win an iPad, you might win a tablet, you might win a trip to the European Parliament, which 3 of my students have done. This is only our 2nd year running the course, running the European Studies course, and all they did was log on to the quiz, and 3 of them so far have won a trip to Strasbourg. So I'd highly recommend that you enter that. Euroscola is the thing that they go to. They get to sit in the big hemisphere in Strasbourg, they get to see what it's like to be an MEP for the day, and they absolutely love it. They interact with students from all over Europe. Brilliant for solidifying new friendships and meeting new people from different countries. So Sabrina has won the trip, Joanne won the trip last year, Kira won the trip this year, and in February of this year, 26 of us won a trip. And that was in 2 years, just using that website, just using the quiz. So 26 of us got to go to Strasbourg and see what it was like to be an MEP for the day. It was absolutely amazing. It was a great experience. We got to go during our midterm break. I didn't realise that when we went through it. But it was lovely. We got 3 days there. We actually got an extra day because the flight was cancelled. Going back, it was very fun. It was the best fun ever. I don't know if anyone ever heard of Erasmus Plus either. It's just something that's come in the last year or so, and there is so much funding behind it. There's so much great opportunity behind it. It's for any schools that are looking to exchange with other schools in Europe. I highly recommend it. There's teacher-only programs if you want to just go with your colleagues. There's student programs if you want to bring your class, and most of it is fully funded. So Erasmus Plus, it's a pain. It's a real pain to fill in the forms, but I'd highly recommend it. Some of you might have also heard of Comenius. That's another thing that you could look into. Or something that we do in my school is European Studies. So it was through the European Studies that we won the competitions on the Graduate Quiz. But I'd also recommend it if you're a French teacher, if you're a history teacher, if you're a geography teacher, anything at all that you can relate it to, you should try and get in European Studies. It's a phenomenal module in TY. It's absolutely amazing. All the resources are provided for you, and the team behind it are great. And they're constantly sending us out resources to the school, inviting us to the Irish Parliament, giving us tours. It's really amazing. So I think, I'm going to finish up now, but I think that for global voices, I think European Studies definitely bring it into your school and some wonders for us. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to me today.
Okay, just while Helen is getting mic'd up, we're going to get a bit of feedback from the Bridge 21. Kevin is looking at me going, really? And some of you here would have participated hopefully in that and got a bit of engagement with the various participants. So Kevin's just going to give us a quick feedback on that. Is that okay?
My name is Kevin, I work for Bridge 21. While you guys were in here this morning listening to Evelyn, myself and a few of the students were outside setting up a little bit of a project. We were trying to recreate a full Bridge 21 student experience, which was a little bit tight in the time that we had, but we hit most of the steps. So we started with some team building and icebreaking games, and we got to know each other a little bit. We formed the students into teams. We went through some of the brainstorming creativity here where they came up with ideas. We started with 50 things you can do with an orange just as a kick-off. We had inventions for the year 2050, so we had lightsabers and time travel and flying cars. And then we had questions about what are the kind of things that students should be learning when they're in school. And there was very specific stuff like learning to drive and first aid, and there was very, very vague stuff like confidence and what was the word? Advocacy. And we decided we want to involve you in all of the project. So I know the students were out and about, they were asking you to write your answer to that question of what should students learn onto a page and take a selfie with that or to get them to take a picture. I know some of you enjoyed doing that, and we love you, and I know some of you didn't enjoy it, but you did it anyway, and we love you as well. So the students did all of this themselves. I had very little input into the video making process, really. It's about 90 seconds long. There's a lot of you in there anyway, and well, hope you enjoy it. So.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sometimes she's here to take a break. Out there in the room, like a ghost face. With the air, I gotta care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy, I'm alone, if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy, I'm alone, if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy, I'm alone, if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy, I'm alone, if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here comes that news, talking this and that. Give me all you got, don't hold back. I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy, I'm alone, if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy, I'm alone, if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy, I'm alone, if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy, I'm alone, if you feel like that's what you want.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Sorry for jumping you into there. Got to be able to react, you know. Okay. Moving on to our last keynote speaker is Helen. She's been waiting patiently all day. I don't know, you've been waiting to hear her speak. So, without any further ado, let's take over and allow you with 40 minutes.
Hi. Right. Okay. You're probably quite tired now, so I'll try not to bore you too much, basically. And one of the things I am going to be sort of talking about really and touching upon is the idea of sort of chaos and embracing chaos. I did have a slight panic before when I realised that this slideshow wasn't running as well as it perhaps could be. And then I thought, well, that's quite nice because it kind of mirrors, you know, one of the subtexts in the presentation. So I'll just warn you now, it may not run smoothly. But yeah, today I'm going to talk about global collaborations, funnily enough. A lot of people have been talking about that today as well. In fact, when I looked at the programme, I must admit I was quite nervous because it's one thing talking about doing interesting things in a university context, but actually when you start looking at what's going on in kind of secondary and especially primary education, I think that's where the really good stuff's happening in kind of teaching and learning. So I hope it's not going to be a case of teaching your grandmother to suck eggs. But yeah, I'm going to talk about, I'm basically going to trace the evolution of a project, or rather a community that I've been involved with for a few years now. And it's an evolution from a community of mobile filmmakers, moving from global projects to a global community that hopefully inspires people to collaborate. And it's quite a subtle but quite a significant shift. Every step of the way there have been things, there have been mistakes we've made, things that we've done well, things that we haven't done so well. And it's always a case of building sort of lessons learned. And I never think you have the answers to you as an educator. We are constantly learning, we're constantly testing things, trying things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. So I'm basically going to tell you the story of that today. So firstly, why mobile film? Okay, I've been involved in mobile filmmaking for quite a few years now. And the thing that kind of drew me to it, I guess, was my teaching and my research is based on digital identities, digital literacies, and digital cultures. So for me, the mobile phone is a kind of ubiquitous media production device that most people have in their pockets. Is quite compelling. You know, we realise our identities through the media we create, through what we choose to share about ourselves. There are specific cultural practices embedded in the use of these tools. And obviously, you know, the digital literacies demanded of us in order to kind of participate in online spaces. So I find it really attractive for that reason. I'm also attracted to mobile filmmaking because I'm actually based in computing science and engineering, where I work with acoustic scientists and video engineering students. And for many years, I've noticed that with the video engineering students, they were really good at using high-end cameras, but the actual narratives and the thinking behind films they produced wasn't that good. They were so focused on the tech. So at that time, this is kind of pre-HD cameras and smartphones, the aesthetic was characterised by being kind of shaky and grainy and pixelated, basically looked a bit rubbish. What it did do was it forced people to really think about the content. You can't get away with telling a poor story when things don't look very good either. So there's lots of reasons for me getting into that space. Also, everything I do is around the web and digital cultures. So I'm really focused on short form content, creating compelling web content. Okay, and again, mobiles lend themselves brilliantly to that. So that's kind of my driver. But yeah, I think you know, the mobile device is kind of fascinating in terms of its in-betweenness. You know, it's in between photography, film, the personal computer, internet, GPS. It takes us into very new spaces in terms of the way that we produce and consume media. So we've got these new forms of production and consumption, and then all sorts of things like the new ways with which we might make films now. There's lots of crowdsourcing. We just saw a fantastic example then. You know, everybody contributes a small bit to a final production, and crowdsourcing is huge, and that's a real big part of digital culture and network society. Micro formats fascinate me. Vine, 6 seconds. Instagram video, 15 seconds. Last year we saw the first Instagram TV show, so imagine that. Every episode is 15 seconds long. So, you know, it really challenges our perceptions. You know, why should things be distributed in 30 minutes or 1 hour slots or 2 hour slots at a big movie theatre? These are all traditional modes of production run by the gatekeepers, and that's this kind of real free-for-all space. So I think it's really exciting to kind of explore that space. The drive to share is huge as well. You know, we don't take photos or make films to be kind of shown in a theatre or in a photo album anymore. When we use these devices, we're sharing something intimate about ourselves, our lived experience. It's almost like a prosthetic camera in a sense. We're able to, you know, we've got this audience in mind. We're sharing instantly with our friends. I'll just show you a quick example here. This is my first time in Ireland, so I'm really excited last night. When this happened, it was amazing. Mary, we've known each other online for quite a few years now. We met for the first time face to face. Mary treated me to my first pint of Irish Guinness in Ireland. It was amazing. And then the crisps. I'm generally so excited about this. It feels impossibly exotic. Straight away, I'm Instagramming this. And, you know, in terms of this drive to share, not only I wanted to share this experience, you know, with my friends on Instagram, but just to sort of think about, you know, the networked cultures that we're living in now, and the kind of, you know, the blurring of boundaries between online and offline and everything. When I finish here, I'm actually going to Dublin and meeting 2 ex-students who saw this photo on Instagram. And so one of them said, "Oh, are you in Dublin?" And it's just like, wow. And one of those students actually told him it was one of the first digital identity blogging projects I did in kind of 2008, and it was all very kind of new to me then. And so it's really weird to think that, you know, we're able to sustain these connections, and that the image acts as this trigger. So there's so much for me to absolutely love about image creation and sharing through mobile media. And I think for all learners, no matter what discipline they're from, it's very valuable for people to learn how to kind of how to really operate within these new spaces. So I'm very much looking forward to more Guinness and crisps with the ex-students later on tonight. But anyway, other exciting developments, proliferation of apps. You know, something really interesting that happened last year was one of the an Oscar-winning film, a documentary, Searching for Sugar Man, was completed using a £1.49 app. Now, the reason being is because lots of the film was shot on 8mm film, and the director ran out of money, wanted to finish the film, and used an app, which the 8mm track. So that's kind of a landmark moment. And so what we're seeing now is that even though, you know, mobile film does challenge traditional production practices, which seems a very kind of weird, avant-garde, pixelated thing, as cameras have improved, we've got the proliferation of apps, and we're getting kind of, you know, famous photographers winning competitions with a photo they've shot using Hipstamatic. The two spaces are really, really blending, and I think that's a very exciting place for us to be. So that's probably, I will stop evangelising about why I love mobile film now. I'm sorry, I do absolutely adore it. It's a really experimental space. So, I, of course, am lucky enough to meet some like-minded people through the power of the interwebs in about 2010, and this is the team that I've been working with since then. So we've got Dan from New Zealand, Laurent from France, Tom from New Zealand, that's me, Philippe from Colombia, and Max from Germany. And we all are into mobile learning and mobile film. We're all coming at it from very different angles. But we kind of started talking, we liked one another's ideas, we were very interested in one another's practice. So in 2010, we became kind of like physical friends for one another's classes. So, you know, I'd stay up and do kind of the odd guest lecture for New Zealand from 2 AM till 4 AM on Monday morning, which was delightful. Yeah, so it did not your body clock out of it. But essentially that developed, and it all kind of worked really well. And so we thought, well, why don't we get our students co-creating, you know, collaborating, and really using these network-located devices to their full potential. Let's get them collaborating across space and time on the production of mobile phone films. So the project is called ELVIS, which stands for Entertainment Live on a Very Small Screen. And in 2012, our ultimate goal was to develop new ways of kind of seeing and learning and collaboration through mobile phone filmmaking across disciplines and across levels. So quite kind of lofty aims in that respect. But we wanted our learners to learn from one another's disciplinary perspectives. You know, mine are kind of much more engineering focused. Dan's students are from cinematic arts. Laurent's students are graphic design students. They all have, you know, very different sort of sensibilities and aesthetics and ideas about what's right and what's wrong, and that's quite interesting to throw different disciplines into kind of one project, one space in that respect. But it was also about us modelling a kind of paradigm shift in educational practice. So the goal for ELVIS 2012 was to get our students working in international teams to create films on the topic of sustainability. So the project was called Mobile In, Global Out, and it involved students in New Zealand, France and the UK, kind of similar student numbers, which we split into groups of, I think, maybe 9 students, 4 teams. So I'll just show you the website now, and this is where everything will probably fall over, because there seems to be some issue with resolution. So let's see what happens now. Hopefully it won't go too wrong. See, we're just opening browser, you're running commentary. Here we go, let's see what happens. Is it going to work? Oh. Okay. Told you there's something amiss. Here we go. Right. So let me make a thing. Hey! Hey! Okay! Right, here's ELVIS 2012, or rather this is the blog hub. This kind of, I just want to show you this quickly really, to give you an idea of the kind of organisation that went into that. So we had about 50 students in that project. This is now an archive because the project's over. If we go to, well, I'll just show you down here the site map, and it shows you how kind of complicated that whole thing was. I mean, we've got our feedback on there, learner blogs and reflections, all the links to the different teams and their collaborative spaces, their different blogs, their Google Docs. assessment briefs, what it is, how it works, research outputs, loads and loads of stuff on here. Let's see, look at the timeline, just trying to give you an idea. The first thing we do is say hello. Everyone makes a hello video. There we go, got a little hello video sitting there. More info for the students here. Here's a master project timeline here. Each country showing there, what project, what we're doing when. So there's a lot of organisation going into this. Lots of suggestions for learners. There we go. Different projects, we've got those on there. You've got the dates, so when it was launched in the different countries. Yeah, there's all sorts of kind of instructions on here. It becomes quite kind of unwieldy in a sense. So look at this one. I remember now. Yeah, okay, so it kind of goes on and on and on. So that was how it was organised. So we thought, you know, we'll just use open spaces. We use Google Docs, Google Hangouts, the blog, everything will be open. We had a YouTube account. We gave every student the username and password for the YouTube account. You know, ultimate trust there. Anyone could have gone in and caused trouble. Nobody did. It was a really, really nice project. You know, we were very pleased with the way that that it went overall. One of the things that was really important for us there was, you know, Google Hangouts. We kicked off with having a great global hangout, which should appear in a minute now. So we had about 50 students meeting, and I think it was about 8 PM for us. So for us and the French students, or my students, our students had beers, and the students in New Zealand had croissants, and it was like a bit of sort of, you know, a cultural to and fro in there. So they all met one another that way. And then the students started in their teams having their own hangouts. That was really interesting to see the way they could approach those. And then we started merging the two groups, so students joined tutor hangouts and vice versa. All of our planning documents in Google were made available for the students to see, so they could see us developing the curriculum. You know, it was very, very open, and it was a great project. Things worked well in many ways. You know, we had manageable numbers, balanced teams, and could easily kind of monitor and manage and sort of control things. That was fine. What didn't work so well, the films themselves. Okay, after a few years of us all working with students to make these wonderful experimental mobile phone films, and please don't tweet this, but I've never seen so many boring pieces. They put so much effort into just the logistics and collaboration that it had taken away, you know, the sort of creativity, the energy for experimentation. So that was quite sobering for us, really. I mean, it was interesting to see that actually the group that really followed things to the letter and did everything according to the timetable when it should have been done, came up with the dullest film ever. Actually, the team that spent all of their time flirting with one another in a Google Hangout until it got to 4 days before the deadline when they went, oh, blimey, we've not made a film yet. Theirs was actually brilliant because it had soul, it had love, it had personality. So, you know, the power of socialisation was really crucial there. But as I say, it was quite sobering for us to see how dull our students' films have become and we trust international collaboration on them. So we thought, well, we want to do this again next year. What can we do to really try and push them to be more kind of out there, experimental, you know, really explore the devices again. So the following year, we stumbled across this, which was an opera, State of Being. So State of Being was a crowdsourced libretto, and the opera was being premiered at an opera festival in London last August. And so the project for 2013 was for 120 students this time from around the world, and we included Colombia into the mix. We had Colombia, France, New Zealand, UK, to create the visual backdrop for an 8-act opera, entirely shot and edited on mobile phones. So we went really kind of right brain on this one. Each group was given an act, and all they had for each act was a one-word descriptor. Okay, science, love, truth, drugs, sex, jazz. And then they were given the soundtrack. Now it's about as avant-garde as you could possibly get. There were no tunes in that soundtrack at all. So, you know, we were really kind of pushing them into a very uncomfortable space, thinking, oh, but this is good, this will challenge them. I'll just show you quickly the organisational chart, the state of being. Hopefully it's the word. As I say, it was much bigger this time. So just to give you an idea of the kind of chaos. Here is the structure. 1 opera, 8 acts, 8 teams, 3 groups within each team. Team conveners, blogmeisters, compliance curators, scribes, blog feeders, group conveners. And here are the teams in the groups for each project: love, dance, science, music, sex, drugs, death, truth. I mean, this was complicated. And these students had to negotiate multiple time zones. When you start adding Columbia into the mix, it's not as simple as being 12 or 13 hours apart anymore. You've literally got a short window every day when everybody's kind of awake and available. So some interesting things happened there. Not many hangouts went particularly well, seemingly. But you know, the end result, it worked in the end. It did work, and it was premiered down in London. The full performance is actually available online, and there's a gorgeous little 2-minute promo that some of the students went down and did for that. But it's one of those things where when you tell people about this project, oh, and it was this 8-act opera, and students from all around the world collaborating, it was entirely shot and edited, and everyone goes, wow, that sounds amazing. Yeah, it does sound amazing. Okay, so, yeah, I think I'm just going to throw some of the challenges at you now. The first one I'm going to start with, actually, the fourth one down. Was it just too out there? Was it a bit too right-brain? Was it just a bit too much? And I think for most people it was. Okay. It was certainly too much for many of my students who are essentially engineers with an engineering mindset. You know, it's where when you're working across disciplines, some projects are going to lend themselves to certain mindsets more than others. This was a really challenging one. The other thing that, and this is another thing that I don't need to tweet, they started kind of playing us off against one another. And we couldn't work it out what was going on, but my students would say to me, well, we tried to have a hangout, but the students in New Zealand didn't turn up. But then the New Zealand students would say, well, my students told me that your students didn't. And it was like kids playing parents off against one another. And it was like, hang on a minute, this is becoming really quite hard to manage. There was a lot of frustration there on the part of both us and the students. But yeah, it was challenging. And, you know, there were different semester dates, so we only really had 3 weeks where all the students were kind of in their teaching semester at once. That complicated things. Other issues would be that for some students it was kind of the core part of their degree. Marks really, you know, counted for this. For other students it was extracurricular. For other students it was an optional module. You know, so very different drivers on behalf of, you know, on the part of the students. Yeah, and imbalanced student numbers as well. I mean, I had like 65 students. There were only 10 in Columbia, 20 in New Zealand. So immediately you can put them into teams, but each team has got kind of 3 UK students and 1 person from Columbia. You know, so there's all sorts of going on there in terms of power relations. So it was successful in some, you know, we had an end product. It was an exciting, wild, challenging project. But there were many issues, and another one of the issues as well was platform preferences. You know, we were always saying that we wanted to be really open and use open platforms. But when we looked at it, what we were doing really, you know, looking at, asking yourself, you know, as Evelyn said this morning, sometimes we have to ask ourselves, you know, difficult questions. We were there thinking, isn't this great? We're using all these open platforms. But you know what? All we were doing was recreating the VLE. We had Dropbox for uploading files, we had Google Hangouts for this, we had Google Docs for this, we had the blogs for this. Well, essentially, it was just what you could do in any VLE, except it was on open spaces. And really, when you're looking at something like this, it's kind of, yeah, there are reasons. It means that one institution doesn't own it, but that doesn't get away from the problems of platform preferences, different platform preferences on the part of students and tutors, which can be according to discipline, according to culture. You know, so for instance, the French students and tutor, they love to use LinkedIn and Behance, which is a video kind of portfolio network. They're not so keen on Facebook. The UK, New Zealand students love Facebook. They don't want to talk in a Google Doc. New Zealand and Columbia students love Twitter, French students, UK students not so keen. So it's all very well as saying, let's use all these open platforms, but everybody wants to use something different. So ultimately, whatever platforms you choose gives somebody more power. Okay, so all of these things to kind of consider. So, you know, we have to ask ourselves some difficult questions. We knew that we were onto something good, but we knew that things kept working and other things wouldn't work. So it's like, okay, it's time for a new approach. So we had a rethink this year. After working together virtually for 3.5 years, I was actually lucky enough to finally get over to New Zealand for a couple of months at the end of the year and work face to face with Tom, Laurent and Dan and Max for the first time. And that's quite amazing when you kind of work with people for 3.5 years and you've met on a weekly basis, you get to know one another so well. And one of the most lovely things was meeting together face to face and feeling like we knew one another. There were no surprises. It's amazing how well you can get to know people. I feel closer to these most of my colleagues in the same university. We see each other either first thing in the morning or last thing at night because of the time zones. So you either look terrible or you've got a glass of wine in your hand, but either way, it's more intimate than an obvious situation. So yeah, we know one another very well by now. We sat down, we had some very honest, very awkward chats, and thought, well, how can we reimagine this? How can we make it work? So we kind of took inspiration from small connectivist MOOCs, in a sense, and thought, well, let's just define it by a hashtag. And let's see what happens when we just build community around a hashtag and try and motivate people. That's it. So it's kind of very simple in that respect. We used a whole range of tools: YouTube, Vimeo, WordPress, Tagboard, Google Hangouts, Flowstocks, Facebook, Vine, Biclone, Instagram. The whole idea was that anyone could use whatever platform they wanted, and as long as it was tagged with Mocha 360, we could aggregate it all into one space, and people could see the activity across multiple platforms. And then our job would then be to aggregate the activity and get learners enthused enough to drive their own projects forward. We didn't want to dictate the project. We didn't want to organise it anymore. We just wanted to set this thing up and see what would happen. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about now. The first thing we did was thinking about this whole idea of the hello video, sending hello videos saying hello and having these global hangouts where it's all quite stilted in a hangout window. Well, we've done that, and yes, it works, but it's not that interesting. I mean, that's the thing with the internet. It's all about making people want to click on something. And I think that's what we often do in education. Because of kind of educational logic, in a sense, aims, objective outcomes, we feel like we've got to give people everything so they know exactly what's going on. It's not really how digital cultures work, is it? You want people to want to click on something, to want to comment, to want to like, to want to share. The two things are kind of very different in some respects. So what we did was we used Vine, and we said to the students, right, okay, we want you to, instead of doing these videos where you all say hello in your name and way, you all just start making weird videos and location them on Google Maps. And then you can all go on the Google Maps and play Google stalking, and you can all find each other, and it really worked because they found one another interesting because they were doing weird things. So Vine was invaluable, it's little 6-second videos. They loved making them, and they were just much more interesting to one another. Okay, so that was the first thing we did. It's interesting, actually, as the project's gone on, Vine has become a space in itself. Because of the 6-second restriction on a Vine video, it's led to this kind of digital resurgence of stop motion. And all our students going stop motion crazy and producing really, really, really good stuff. So that's really nice to kind of see that and how it's become, as I say, created to itself. Here's an example now. This is a tagboard, right? So this is pulling in content. This is content from Instagram, Vine, Twitter. It'll pull in content from everywhere. So everybody can just follow that hashtag on the tagboard and see it constantly moving and the contributions from all different platforms all around the world. So it's not about us dictating platforms at all anymore. Anyone can use anything. It's about learners and individual tutors choosing what platforms to use. So we're still seeing the community, but we're working across all of these different spaces. There's a screenshot here just showing the way that we just planned our collaborations or room spaces for collaboration this year. This is just a small part of a Google Doc, and what we did was we'd each put in what we'd be doing with our students in a particular week. and then we look to see where the potential would be for collaboration in that sense. So it wasn't about us saying, right, a project and making our courses fit. It was about, these are our courses, where would be a logical point to say to the students, hey, how about making a film with somebody in a different country? You know, there's subtle differences, but very, very effective. And another thing that, with the tag board and constantly pushing this hashtag Moco360, students became to gradually get this sense of it as the modules went on. So if I think back to the first week of my module, and I was telling the students about Moco360, and it's just this alien thing to them. Okay, by starting each class each week by pulling up the tag board and saying, look what's been happening this week, and they're spotting their content, and we're talking about content from other countries, it moves from being something alien to having this kind of ambient awareness of Moco360 and gradually builds up to a sense of them being part of something. And after that 4 to 6 weeks, they're really looking forward to collaborating with these other students whose work they've been seeing now for weeks and weeks. So just to, I mean, something that I thought was wonderful, as I said, people actually wanted to collaborate. It wasn't about us saying they had to do it anymore. It was completely up to them. But one of the students, when it got to the point where we kind of said, right, we're going to set up a Facebook group, but we're not going to be involved. This is just for you. Like, if you want to talk, if you want to meet people from different countries to make a film with, there's a group there. And they got really excited. And one of the students that week, he went home and made this video to sort of welcome all the students. This wasn't assessed. You know, there was just a real buzz about it. Just a little technology. Hello, Colombia, salut France. Hey, Kiwis. From UK. Yeah. And it's really nice to see them kind of communicating in these ways through micro content. I think micro content is really powerful, isn't it? You know, it's fun to make, it's quick to make, it's easy to share. And again, I think in the past we were trying to, without realising it, we were kind of working along the lines of kind of old production paradigms, but in actual fact, these are much more effective ways to create, connect in a networked age. So I'm going to finish off just by showing you 3 of the international collaborative projects that emerged, that were kind of driven by the learners, because I think they all sort of demonstrate different aspects of this kind of new form of the collaboration with Moco360. The first one is it's a mixed reality mobile mentoring. If this was, what I liked about this one, it's actually a collaboration between the student and the tutor. I mentioned before that in the first time we ever did an ELPS project, we were keen to get students and tutors kind of meeting together online. You know, we didn't want it to be us and them. And this is a really nice example, as I say, of a student and tutor coming together. Very important in terms of behaviour modelling as well. I'll just show you a short clip. So it's a mixed reality mobile mentoring, looking at basically Bogota, Colombia, and Manchester, the UK. This is Felipe and Morgan. Okay, let's think about location, where we locate ourselves, similarities and differences between cultures. That was really influential because it's one of the first collaborations. And the behaviour modelling is still important, it's still there, but I think it's about doing it in very subtle ways. Philippe didn't control that, you know, he literally put a shout out and Gordon responded. and they set up a Google Doc, which was open to everyone to go and look at, to see how they planned the shot, see how it was done. And people learned from that. But we were very, very hands-off. But that then led to lots of students going on the Facebook group with ideas. And it was just fantastic. And I would sit there every day looking at the activity on this group going, bloody hell, we've been trying to do this for 3 years now. It's been awesome. And as soon as we just back off and we're just enablers and get people excited, you know, they're doing some fantastic stuff here. I mean, this was within like not much time at all. 38 comments. The students' film idea, and people in all, you know, the different countries are going, sounds great, what would you like from me? Can you just please describe exactly what kind of shot you want? Where should the ball be? How fast do you want me to spin? You know, and they're all talking. And it's just fantastic to see that engagement. There's another lovely example here. This is a nice sort of crowdsourced example using Instagram clips of hands around the world. Again, using geolocation to get this sense of kind of space. Yeah, looking at what different people's hands do around the world. So again, it's this idea of kind of laying micro content onto geo services. So really nice ways to explore the technologies available to us, new cultural practices again. Actually a whole website for this, where they've got all the individual contributions, and it's just beautiful, and it's like, skip on we'll fly around the world, here we go, lands in Bogota, lands in Singapore, later on, it's just lovely, and to see the students kind of manage the projects in this way. Still developing skills and kind of experimenting projects and practice. But they're also developing skills needed for international collaboration. I think Newcastle, international collaboration, social networking, organising, you know, a large project around the globe, and it's actually much better than the way we were doing things before, basically. And they're driving it themselves. The final one I'll show you. This has taken on a life of its own, the Force Perspective project. This wasn't just a film, this became a social media campaign. And this film is going to get bigger. They're falling in love with this project. It's got a whole big social media campaign around it. Driven by students, it was their idea, but they've got more and more people involved, the students and tutors in the initial video. They're carrying on next year. They have complete ownership of this. So I'll just show you the Force Perspective video now. And again, these are all kind of techniques, and they're way, you know, they're looking at a way that we kind of see the world, the way that we can play with perception and perspective. So, Yeah, there's a whole instructional video for this, and so it's carrying on. So if you want to make a video for the Cross Perspective Project, please do. I mean, these students actually, it works so well, and so that people really learn about kind of perspective-based filming, that they're going to come back next year and do an entire week with next year's students. You know, they're going to actually run it. It's been great to see how these things have taken off. I mean, last night, I was speaking with students last night or this morning, saying, oh, I noticed we haven't got a video group for the module, so I've just set one up, so you can just tell everyone. And, you know, they're really kind of, it's for them, it's theirs as well. I guess that's what I'm saying. And I think micro formats, you know, the Vines, the Instagram, it's easy to dismiss them as something that's kind of quite frivolous, because they're easy to do and easy to share. But actually, they're fantastic. They give us a fantastic constraint, which is time. And having to do something in a short space of time means that students this year have experimented with so many different filming techniques, because they can do it in 6 seconds or 15 seconds or 30 seconds. And so by the time it comes to the collaborations, they've already experimented with techniques. They're just dying to sort of, you know, test drive them with other people. So some really interesting sort of dynamic shift there. And as I say, it's worked very well. So I think, as I say, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. I'd like to, you know, next year carry on with this, but bring in more time for kind of in-depth reflections at the end. That's always going to be a challenge because of time, different semesters. But, you know, it's always going to be a work in progress because we're constantly learning by this. But one of the things that I think, you know, we've really taken from this year was just, you know, embrace the chaos, stop trying to control it, because I think that's the mistake we've made over the last 2 years. We've tried to really keep these things tight and organised and all the things that we think we should do. It's interesting, Evelyn was, you know, saying this morning about Tom Bennett's book, and, you know, and I'm an educational researcher myself. I love a bit of educational theory, but if I'm brutally honest, I'm also inclined to trust my instincts. And I can see when something's good or something's not good. Okay, the last couple of years in these collaborations, the final products, you watch them and you assess them. You don't want to watch those films again. Put it that way. But this year, I mean, it's a joyous experience watching the films. It's making me watching them again. We had a film showing on Tuesday afternoon where we got one of the, you know, sort of an hour-long show of group projects they've done, and we all sat down and watched these films. It's brilliant. And some of the films I've watched again and again and again. I love them. When you can love your students' work and they can love their work and they want to do more and they want to share, then you just know that it's right, you know. So I think we need to keep hold of that, bring in a bit more in-depth reflection next year, see how it goes. I'm sure something else will go wrong, but there you go. So I'd just like to end by thanking my wonderful team, because they are fantastic to work with, and I think we're really lucky to have found one another. So thanks very much for listening. Thank you.
Wow. That's great. And I think now for the next wow, I think it was interesting you said embrace the chaos. When we embrace the chaos, these kids that are brought to embrace the chaos, so they're next up. I think we've turned chaos into something fantastic, something combination
We'll just yeah, Joe, when you're ready. Great. And just while Joe's standing up, if we get the team to come up to one, please. Husband, please stand here. She is somewhere. Yes, there you are. Very good. Oh, sorry. There they are. What they've been doing all day, you're now about to see in a shortened version. It's an incredible achievement in my books. I work at higher education level. I work with master's students, doctoral programs, diploma type students, the groups I work with would be hard pressed to do anything like the level of work that's been done by this group here today. So, you know, it's now that I kind of pop the question, would you do it again? You do this again? Yes, no, and you always, okay, did you learn how to read today?
Laura Wilson.
Did you learn how to today that you never did before?
With Paula.
Yeah, okay. And if I were to come and say to you guys, you know, there's a gig on 2 weeks' time in such and such a place, how many of you would be interested? I think that speaks for itself, folks. You know, this is enthusiasm, but I'll be back as well. Okay, what you're going to see, Joe's going to take over here. This is the main product, but there's a lot more. Any of you who've been on the Twitter stream all day have seen the stuff that we're producing. The tweets have been flying. The comments have been very, very generous. I'm going to make just one final little shout out, and it's very important to me. Pam, thank you very much for the invitation to come and be part of this conference. It's a terrific conference. Catherine, thank you for everything you've done in terms of, you know, working with the group today. And Joe, you know, genuinely, this is a man that you stand in awe of, and you work with him. He's quite incredible. Having said that, everything probably now fall over. All right, team, thanks very much.
This year we're going to something a little bit different, and I think that particularly considering we're celebrating 10 years of ICT this year, ICT is all about trying things out, trying things different, experimenting. So we thought we'd come up with an e-book this year, so we've created everything today, everything's been done on site. It's absolutely multimedia, we've got images, text, video, audio, you name it, it's in the book. It's available, you can see it on an iPad, you can also look at it in a browser using a Chrome extension called Readium, which is R-E-A-D-I-U-M. We're going to publish it onto the ICT website later on, but now we're just glad that we've got it finished and it's all here. Anyway, so away we go. So as you can see, we've got the lovely montage at the beginning using Piccollage. Everyone holding the ICT and as we're using iBooks here, so it's a lovely experience. I'm going to show little clips of the video. We're not going to watch every single one in its entirety, but just to give you a flavour. So this was the youth media team being interviewed themselves, which is quite amusing. So as has been written here, the tables will turn. So here's a quick snippet of this. We haven't got the audio. Yes, it's on full volume. Okay, we'll have to do it without the audio, that's a shame. Okay, so anyway, that's that. Any ideas? Okay. Some full volume, okay? Don't know. Okay, never mind. There you go, we said it was going to fall over. Right, so, okay, next. Then we had interviews, we've got some audio here, which unfortunately we can't listen to. So, about Bridge 21, a quick bit of text there. This is actually, look, it's a real shame we can't have the audio for this. I'll come back to this video. This is Finn's been working on this for half a day, and we'll come back to that. We'll finish on that in a minute. So as I've said already, it's celebrating 10 years of ICTDU. We've got a nice little audio boo interview. So we've got the URL in here. So using Book Creator, which is what we use as the app on the different iPads. We had about 4 or 5 different iPads running simultaneously, and we had Google Drive installed on all the iPads with all of the same login details. So we just uploaded each double-page spread. So the students were asked to put together a double-page spread each. They uploaded each one's Google Drive, and we used one full version of Book Creator, and then used the Open-In function in Google Drive to then import everything into the one Book Creator file, and then we just turned the whole thing into the book which we've got in front of us. So there is the audio URL there, which you can listen to later. let's carry on. A lovely interview with Helen here in the video. Let's see if that's going to work. Let's see if we get some audio now. No, I think so. You think so? Okay. I'm not sure. Okay, never mind. Anyway, listen. Yeah. Okay. Let's just see. If we... No, there's no audio playing at all on it. Anyway. Okay, I've got no idea. Never mind. Right. So, and we've got. Oh, that's just that. Now, you shouldn't have said that, Connie.
Sorry, Joe.
It's going really well. It's been one of those days today. It's been one of those days today. It absolutely has. Anyway. But, right, let's carry on. So, lovely piece there about Claudine. We've got a lovely video there. I will just play some of this because it's got a really, really nice effect. Instead of the students asking the question, this, one of the students wrote out the question handwritten on a piece of paper and then just included it at the beginning of each little video clip, which I thought was a really, really nice idea. It's just the same, you can't hear it. Never mind. And you'll see, yeah, there you go. Can you see? That's really, really nice use of iMovie there. Okay, let's carry on. So lovely audio interview there with Evelyn. Okay, lovely one with Stephen, looking very happy there, isn't he? And to finish off with, we've got the credits of everyone involved, and then I just thought we'd finish off with the picture there as well, bringing everything together. So this is all about global voices, and I think that we've captured this really, really nicely in this ebook. So it's nice to do things a bit different, and I think everyone has done a really good job. So let's give everyone a round of applause.
What software would you have used to create the ebook?
Okay, so I used Book Creator. We used Book Creator to create the book. So we had Book Creator on Google Drive. So Google Drive was installed on all the iPads with the same login details. So that meant that everyone had access to all the material. And then using Book Creator, we were able to import audio, video, etc. And then, but if anyone tries this, a piece of advice is you need, when you upload to Google Drive, tap on the eye icon and tap on rename, because otherwise we had, say, 3 versions of A New Book 1, A New Book 2. So you had like A New Book 1 4 times, you had to work out which one was which. So if you were doing this yourself, just rename the files, otherwise it's very, very confusing. But yeah, it was very simple, and apart from paying €4.49, I think it was, for the full version of Book Creator, everything else is free. I mean, yeah, admittedly iMovie, but you could have done something similar with a free app instead, and that's how we did it. Thank you. So it really was a huge collaboration from everyone. It's great. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks again to the Good Media team. It's fantastic. It's great to have that record of this event created by them. I have the task of just trying to close out and do the various thank yous. And I think a number of people have said it to myself and to other people that this year we've taken this event to a different level, and I think I hope you all feel the same. I certainly do. As you know, as a head of department, it's a privilege to be involved with the team here that have made this happen, and yourselves and all the people that are involved today. Unfortunately, a bit like some of the other organisers, we didn't actually get to go into any of the workshops. Hopefully you got to see that. So some of my takeaways from this, those keywords, I think a couple of words that struck me that I wrote down were authentic and real. Using technology is fantastic, really embedding it as being authentic and real about what we do. I think Minister Cannon's point was that the policymakers are catching up, trying to catch up with all the things that are happening out there. And that's really interesting in that, the things that are happening are moving so fast, policymakers in a way are struggling to keep up with what's happening. I think it's empowering in that when we're talking about Code Week in Ireland, what made it happen? The community that's engaged in this space made it happen. You can't write that into a policy document. You can't create a fund that will make that happen. It's down to the people that have taken the time out to come here and get involved and be involved with the students that make that happen. That's fantastic. Helen finishing up about the the endless connections and possibilities that are there, but also the challenges that they present, and maybe going too far and trying to come back from the chaos. And I suppose the one key word is the fun. You know, micro-content is fun, lots of the things is fun. Seeing the minister with entering the 3D space up there and wondering, wow, this is great. So all of the fun that can be built around the learning is important. So in terms of thank you, there's a bit of a list here, but I'll quickly go through. Obviously, the minister for taking the time out and being very busy on the election campaign, along with cooking sausages for American visitors. Our president, and she was one of the people. She's been at this event for 2 or 3 years, and this year she came in and she said, "Wow, this has been a different level, and great when people of that caliber are noticing those things." For our keynotes to Evelyn, Stephen, Julie, and Helen, I think they were fantastic. Time and effort that they've gone into preparing for this and linking in with our theme of Global Voices is great. To all our workshop speakers, I don't have the time to go through them all. It takes time to prepare, to be prepared to stand up in front of your peers and present. And so the time that they've taken to prepare and come here today has been really appreciated. Thank you very much. To our walk facilitators, and Helen talked about embracing the chaos. I will freely admit that I had to embrace the chaos on this one. When it was first mentioned, I went, management, empowerment, no, can't be done. But then I walked away and let it happen. And I think thanks to Connor, who came up with the idea, and to Kevin, Bianca, Jacqueline, Nolan, and John and Esther for facilitating and being the people on the walk. And it worked for me, absolutely, and I hope everybody else benefited too. To all our sponsors and supporters, again, these things cost money, and we really value the input that they've made, but also I think they've helped us bring this thing to a different level, that they've added a new dimension to the whole event. To our students on the youth media team and from all the other local schools that got involved in all the various activities, part of LIT's mission in the region is to engage not just students that come into third level, but to engage with actors and people throughout the region. And getting the students involved through these events is really important. So thanks again to them. Youth media team happens because of Connor and Joe and Catherine. The kids are great. We do have to kind of direct them a little bit, and the effort that they put into making sure these products are produced to capture the essence of the day is great. And it has been a success, and we really look forward to working with the Minister at his event and lots of other events in the future. It's a great opportunity for students and kids to get involved, and we value it. I think we have had an illustrator, Liam, moving around a bit. I actually haven't seen him all day. I haven't seen lots of people all day, so that doesn't mean anything. So thanks for his effort. I think behind all these events, and when you walk out the door at 5 o'clock, there's a huge amount of work that goes in over the last number of months to make this happen. Across our academic team, our administrators, our facilities, our IT people. I'm not going to name them all because I will leave out somebody and then I'll be shot on Monday. But a heartfelt thanks from my point of view, from Colin McLean, the head of school's point of view, and hopefully from all of your point of view for making this event a success. There are hours and days of effort to make it happen. So thanks, sincere thank you from me to all of them. And I think I can't let it go without. I have to name one person, and you all know who she is, and she's quietly sitting up there at the back. She is the inspiration and the drive behind these things. These events happen because they're a team effort. But ultimately, we need somebody that says to make things happen, and Pam is that person for ICT and education. I think a warm round of applause for her. So with that, I wish you all a very safe journey home. Please enjoy the weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next year for our 11th year. And we do have a nice message to let you walk out the door with.
I think Joe wants to just show one of the videos that
if I get two of it, okay? The sound should be working, okay? There we are. So this is Finn's film, celebrating 10 years of ICT EDU.
One last thing.
So one last thing. So we haven't finished this. We started to try and do a happy video. So I have it. The last part is this video, right? So we're going to put on the happy music again. I want to take a 10-second QE, and then the first time I put online, we'll do this.
Yeah, that's right. 10th birthday cake. Thank you, Evelyn.
Everybody stand up. Here we go.